And I, first of all, just want to say this is a draft presentation. So I appreciate your patience and forbearance. I want to go through this very quickly so that we get to the summit. But as Esther said, my name is Lindsay Smith. I am the Regional Food Systems Planner at the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. And we call it the COG for short. Montgomery County is a member, and it's been around since the late 50s to bring our local elected officials together along with subject matter experts, some state and federal representation to work together to address regional issues. I'm going to skip this very quickly. This is the structure of the policy committee structure of the Council of Governments. COG is also home to the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board. It's called TPB for short. It is a major area of work for COG, possibly it is the biggest portion of our staffing anyways. So we have several policy committees, as you can see here, and the Food and Agriculture Regional Member Committee is the newest one. I need to just use my down arrow, which was established back in 2020. And I just wanted to show the Farm Committee's mission quickly, which is to support the development of long-term regional direction and collaboration toward a more secure, equitable, resilient, connected food and farm economy across metropolitan Washington's urban, suburban, and rural communities to provide more of the region's food needs. So I know, as you saw in the picture, the COG region includes the District of Columbia, suburban Maryland, and northern jurisdictions. So effectively, we work across 3 states. Our current chair is Councilmember John Staley from the city of Fairfax. Councilmember Parker at the ward, who represents Ward 5 in the District of Columbia, is one of the vice chairs, as well as Montgomery County Council President Andrew Friedson. I'm just going to show these farm priorities quickly. If you'd like to look at them later, the point is that environmental sustainability, regional food system infrastructure, equity, procurement, and improving and communicating regional food system data are all among farm's priorities. Here's our committee structure. So the Farm Policy Committee answers directly to the COG board, which is elected leaders and appointed officials from the region exclusively. Farm also has some subject matter experts who are members, like FRESHFARM, the Capital Area Food Bank, Maryland Hunger Solutions, and a couple others. We have 3 work groups, all of which are in different stages of activity. But the 2 I will mention just a little bit more about are the Food Council Collaborative and the Regional Ag Work Group. So these are made up of technical experts in their fields from our local and state governments and some nonprofits. And several folks on today's call are part of either the Regional Ag Work Group or the DMV Food Collaborative. I mentioned them because they were really the folks, and primarily and especially the DMV Food Collaborative, who put out a call to do an aggregation and distribution summit, just given how regional our food system is in nature. So here were the objectives for the summit, which were to strengthen the relationships between the work groups, the Farm Policy Committee, and aggregation and distribution stakeholders, develop some shared understanding around food and aggregation issues, and exchange what's happening in different communities around our region on this issue. Another objective was to inform the Farm Policy Committee's work products, such as the What Our Region Grows report, which we are scoping to do another update on. And then to identify, what are the big barriers, what are the opportunities for collaboration, and how can we work together on what are some of the next steps and how can we work together. So just a quick overview of the agenda. The event, we had about 55 or 56 folks. Again, it was primarily open to our farm committee members as well as members of the Regional Agricultural Work Group and the DMV Food Collaborative. And it was also available virtually. This was the first time that we had done something in this format, but the Council of Governments, our Regional Ag Work Group, and our Regional Food Systems program broadly have done several convenings, especially prior to the pandemic, around the supply chain and regional collaboration. One of the things that the collaborative members and the Ag Work Group members who helped us plan this event really wanted emphasized was there needs to be a lot of time for networking. And so that was built in throughout the day, as well as trying to promote as much engagement during some of the speaking sessions as possible. Just a quick look at who some of the speakers were. I know you'll all see at least one familiar name on here. Heather is a member of the farm committee, as is FRESHFARM. And here are some of the other speakers that talked with us either about specific work they're doing in supply chain development, perspectives and experience they've seen at a regional high level, or specific projects that they're interested in. So one just to call out would be Alex Zwerdling, who you may know, who is working with the Morningstar Foundation and Capital Impact Partners to make cold storage investments around the region and also hosts a work group. And as you will not be surprised by, that came up several times during the meeting. So it was really exciting to have her there to share with folks actively working in the space an update on what's happening. The summit agenda, the speaker bios, and the presentations are all available on COG's website. And here are just a few pictures of the summit. Again, some folks that you may recognize. And Lorian, I'm thinking also in the lower right-hand corner, that may be somebody who you're going to see on your upcoming UMD tour. Jenny Freeman, I will put you on the spot in a few minutes about what you took away from this event. So fair warning. The key findings, and thank you again for your forbearance with this draft presentation, because we will distill this down. And there are some, frankly, that are missing that we need to add as well. But again, some of the primary assets and barriers that were identified to develop food aggregation and distribution capacity so that we have a more resilient food system included staffing to do things like to provide technical assistance, but also to provide a lot of coordination and matchmaking between farmers, producers, and the markets that they could access. Food hubs and networks. Sorry, I just mixed up my assets and my barriers. We have a lot of assets in existing staff. There is a tremendous amount of expertise and creativity and innovation that's happening. And I think your next presentation will really highlight that, as I'm sure some of the other folks you've talked with will. It's also a barrier on the coordination side. We have food hubs, we have great networks. The Montgomery County Food Council is a wonderful example of a really, I think, critical node in our region of networks. Regional food systems infrastructure, the federal program that's coming into the region, another asset, and then political will. We do, I believe, and some of the participants must have agreed that we have a lot of interest locally and at this and more at the state level, and also at the federal level, possibly more than we've ever had before. But there are barriers: land and capital access, cost of land, zoning and permitting, the lack of infrastructure. And then you'll note that folks talked about the need for regional collaboration and coordination. But they also noted that the way that we're structured in the region and the way that we do budgeting for local and state government can make it difficult to create positions to adequately support and work across jurisdictions. As far as I know, COG is the place where we do that for policy and bringing people together to share best practices, look for solutions, host convenings like this one. But I think what our participants were speaking to is we need to either build, elevate, or strengthen the collaboration that's happening across jurisdictional lines to make sure that we're maximizing what our farmers, producers are doing and the markets that they want to access and can be accessed, that we're reaching those. Let me move on. So I think I will, rely on you all to either read this now or bring it up in the questions if that's something that's of interest. But I think something that a lot of us have thought about and may be actively working on is some of the barriers around pricing for purchasing local products. We want to make sure that farmers are fairly compensated. Lorian, did you wave yet? Okay, sorry, I minimized my screen.
I think so there's 5 more minutes.
Okay, so it was acknowledged that there are barriers around pricing for purchasing local and regional food. And again, I think your next presentation may speak to some of the ways folks are working with that creatively. Some increased collaboration and data collection around these topics could potentially help with this. But there was also some discussion, particularly from some of our first speakers, like Renee Katakalos, who's now with FRESHFARM, and Will Gray, who's with the Eastern Food Hub Collaborative, around the fact that there is demand, for the local and regional products that are being produced, and there could be more demand, but in their view, we need to shift our thinking around food to being a public good and something that is supported to help bring together the gap between supply and demand, and frankly, ability to pay. And the other piece was that I really love that Renee made is we really need to we can work on getting local and regional food into the food supply chain in ways that people aren't aware that they're making a special effort to go out and purchase local and regional food. And I think I thought that was a more impactful way to talk about some of the projects around institutional procurement that I know a lot of you are working on. So from this convening, the initial next steps that came out of it were there is going to be a virtual workshop with the Regional Ag Work Group and the DMV Food Collaborative to map out recommendations to the Farm Committee about next steps they should take. We will be launching a new bi-monthly regional call on food systems data and mapping in the fall. This will be open to anyone that's working on this topic or has interest in the topic. It will probably not be geared towards folks that may just be hearing about food system mapping or data collection. And then we are having some follow-up discussion on the need for at least one regional value chain coordinator across the metro area to facilitate connections between farmers and producers. I thought before question and answer, though, I know that both Nanya and Jenny Freeman were at the summit, and I just love for all of us to hear anything that they particularly took away or an interesting connection that they made that day.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. My name is Naya Chejne, and I am the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Food Council. And yeah, Lindsay, I really enjoyed that particular meeting. And before I jump in, I think one of the other things that struck me was from one of the panelists was saying that they really much appreciated having that space to talk about what's working and what's not. And I think that's a value that these types of convenings create for all of us in this system, because we don't know it all, but it's always interesting to hear what's working and what's not from others. So as it relates to aggregation, my own takeaway was, now we're in the lens of a nonprofit, right, who's working in the food system. I really walked away with thinking about how the Food Council can do more work in the regional coordination of things. Learning that, the rural farmer, well, knowing also that the rural farmers really lack that aggregation mechanism, to kind of get their produce to food assistance providers, and the barriers, presented to them. And also about how we need to have guaranteed markets for our local farmers and producers, guaranteed markets in terms of like that strengthening that chain, right, that can create pathways for them to go into schools and to hospitals and to all these places. And so there's a lot of work to be done in that area, frankly. And I'm just still pondering on ways that the Food Council can, step up for what, at least what we consider rural, in our own region, to kind of help coordinate, purchase and all of that. And so it was a really interesting meeting, and I'm looking forward to learning more, following up with that conversation, because I think that that's a very important conversation we need to be having until we establish that and we strengthen that. But thank you, Lindsay, for the opportunity to offer my insight. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer. She's here. I think
Yeah,
she's here.
yeah, I'm
Hi,
here. Yeah.
Jennifer.
Thanks.
Hi.
Thanks too. And thanks, Lindsay, for everything that you've been doing with the meeting. It was fantastic. What I think that I just want to echo also what Naya was saying, that it gave people a chance to connect. And I think that is so critical. And what I also loved about, I think one of my favorite things was that it was really a mix of participants. So, you have people who are sort of the high level regional thinker types, but then you have on the ground grassroots people. You had farmers there who actually are really able to share really what's happening literally in the ground, right, on the ground and in the ground. And I think that mix of a group of people connecting and then sitting together and having lunch together, like the way it was structured was fantastic. The speakers were great. I was familiar with some of them, but not everybody, so I had a great chance to learn a lot. So that selection, the topic, of course, I'm fascinated by and working on with aggregation in general. So no, just a big shout out that it was a lot of connections to afterwards. So just, who use it with lunch, and then you get their cards and then you follow up, and it was fantastic. So thank you for all of that work and everybody, the whole team putting it together. It's great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Now we're going to go into the Q&A portion. So if anyone has any questions for Lindsay on what she's presented on, now's your chance. You can either unmute yourself or use the hand raise button.
If no one else has a question, Lindsay, I have something that I know you and I have talked about this, and Naya touched on this too, is that, one of the things that I feel is a significant challenge and barrier, unfortunately baked into how we all work on the food system issues is, our bridging across municipalities, right? And so, we were talking about how to coordinate more regionally. Naya mentioned it would be, amazing if organizations like ours could help, do this more of this regional coordination. And yet, and I know Council of Governments is up against this all the time, like, how to like basically, when our mandate literally ends at the county line, if for certain, for certain things, but we want and really are able to expand our focus to regional. how do we, and I wonder if, honestly, just, what would be, any sort of like thoughts related to that, or sort of almost advice for organizations like ours on how we can, kind of strategize and shift our focus regionally to help this coordination effort. I think, and then just to add to that a little bit, an example is our MoCo Made program. Like, we're dedicated to our MoCo Made program, and yet it is MoCo, and we would love to be able to offer some of those services we offer to the Montgomery County food and beverage businesses to perhaps food and beverage businesses outside the county, but it's sort of baked into our programming thus far. So all that to say, do you have any advice or sort of anything that came up at the summit related to that?
Morgan, I need to take the question about what came up at the summit about that. I think back to the team. During the World Cafe, there were breakout groups, and one of the largest breakout group was talking about regional coordination. And I really appreciate that Naya mentioned the convening space, because that was kind of one of the calls that we heard was people need a chance to reconnect in person, share what's happening, get caught up, exchange business cards, work on something they've been intending to do that, may be starting locally or maybe it's regionally, but, something that needs to be done and there's a benefit to being together. I guess I would just say, in terms of like the MoCo Made program, I have no business experience, so I'm not the person to answer that question, but you're a county of 1 million people, over 1 million people, and you're going to continue to grow. And so, my perspective, not being a business person, is that it is valuable to have something that really directly connects people, the residents of Montgomery County, the visitors that come to Montgomery County, with your producers, your farmers. And then I think in terms of regional coordination, at least around the metro area, I think, to the extent that your capacity allows it, the Food Council is built itself into a very strong, sophisticated organization that really has focused on relationship building and building trust. And you're active at the state level, you're active at the regional level, but I think to the extent your capacity allows, and that's part of the vision. There are plenty of our residents, plenty of our farmers, food business owners, makers that, where they live and work is not necessarily the same place, where their suppliers, may be producing or aggregating and distributing, may or may not even be in the region. So, I would say, I think as your projects and your priorities dictate, like, continue making those connections. I think the value that COG could really add in this respect is just ensuring that we make space for the ongoing regional collaboration with some of the point people that are heading up these kind of networks, so that we can have the opportunity to share with other jurisdictions what's happening, elevate any opportunities, things along those lines.
Yeah. Thank you, Lindsay. I don't want to miss Mike's comment. Mike wrote in the chat, work through infra and NCG to reach smaller retailers to build the buying markets, because the larger grocery chains aren't making buying decisions locally anymore. Yeah.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I've been in food service for private institutions for 25 years, and I'm highly dependent on the distributors to get my produce. And even when I ran a school program and tried to do farm to school programming, literally I was the one driving out to pick up apples 30 miles away from the school and bring them back and wash them and everything else. And you know, food security purposes, it was kind of, I mean, it was great, but it was also very awkward. And I think that you know, small businesses and even medium-sized businesses and schools and institutions to be like we're really dependent on what the distributors have to offer. Even if we put out spec sheets, the spec sheets are, the distributor will say, we don't have that, and this is what we do have. And so it's there's, I think, you know, in that coordination of getting to the smaller buyers or the medium-sized buyers, really life is very busy and it's very hard, and business is very hard to, like, we're really dependent on the distributors. And it would be like, how do we work with you know, Keeney, Capital Seafood, you know, Dale, whatever. There's just a whole bunch of guys out there. So that, I think, to me, when I'm listening to this, I'm hearing like, I would love to buy local. You know, University of Maryland has a big old advertisement. Actually, later this month, you're going to be, or next month, you're going to be doing a tour with them. They have programs, but they're huge. You know, they're $30 million program, and they have people dedicated to this, and they could either pull in whole trucks or half trucks. And I've spoken to farmers, and farmers will say they're not interested in coming to a small location because it's not worth it to them. So, so those are the challenges that I see and hear over the years. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Eric, for that very thoughtful comment. Yeah, thank you. That's interesting that you bring up, it's just you were literally going to the farm and picking it up. So the infrastructure wasn't in place, you're saying, so it became almost a bit inconvenient because you were having to drive out there and then wash and dry and all that.
I mean, it didn't bother me in the sense that it was a value of doing a farm to school, but it was very
Mhm.
limited in what I could do.
Right.
And the farm to school, if I wanted to expand the program, whoever my produce distributor was, I'd be tacking onto what they have, which
Mm.
is fine. You know, that's great to be able to go into something. If another company has already created a program, uh, uh, then that's great. I mean, I don't have to reinvent the wheel myself, but it was difficult. You know, I'd go to the farmer's market, and here he was only a few miles from my school that I was servicing, but he wouldn't drop it off. I'd have to go to his farm to pick it up and do that. So, um, yeah, it was the infrastructure is it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to join other farmers because he said when he joined other farmers, the quality control wasn't there. Some farmers like to put their bad stuff into like these big pots and unload the stuff that's like medium grade and lower grade and mix it in with the big pot because they can. Because no one sees their name on the actual thing. So he stayed away from that. So, but there's yeah, and then I saw a comment just pop up saying that buying locally is more difficult, and it's true.
Wow. Wow. We got some yeah, like you mentioned, some good comments in the chat. Don't want to miss any of them. Let me see if we have any further questions. Mike, it's always harder to buy locally direct than order through national. Yep. Simplification is needed. Alice said local sourcing is being done all over the country, working with larger food hubs and distributors, but it takes dedicated distributors to handle the gap between industrial food supply chain and smaller farms. However, it is doable with the right processes. No need to yep, no. Yeah. These are more like comments and responses, but yeah, no, really great talking points. Thank you so much. I do want to honor our next speaker's time. I'm sorry, that was a really great discussion. Possibly continue that either later today or at our next meeting. But do you want to hand it over to Caron Gremont, Director of Food Systems, Resiliency, and Innovation at FRESHFARM? And yeah, do you want to introduce yourself and I can prepare
Sure.
to share my screen?
Sure. Hi, everybody. As Esther mentioned, my name is Caron Gremont. I hope that this conversation perhaps even addresses some of the challenges and issues that came up in Lindsay's presentation. So please do let me know. The name Fresh Farm has come up a few times on this call, so I'd love to tell you a little bit more about Fresh Farm. Esther, do you mind pulling up the first slide?
Yes, absolutely.
So just for background, for those of you that don't know, Fresh Farm is a local nonprofit. We do a lot of different things, but our real kind of core mission is building a more equitable, vibrant, sustainable, and resilient food system here in the Mid-Atlantic. You may know us from the farmers markets that we run. We run about 20 of them in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Rebecca, who is on the call, leads that part of the program. We also run the Food Prints program, which is a food education program in elementary schools in DC that has been around for decades and has a long track record of changing behavior and getting kids excited about eating local produce, which is what we all want. I'm actually here today to talk about our pop-up food hub program, which has been around for many years, but we are really trying to ramp up our program and our impact. So I'd love to share a little bit about it with you today. So the pop-up food hub is a nonprofit food hub and a food distributor, and we have two really key missions that work hand in hand. Our first is our commitment to supporting specifically small and mid-sized farmers in the Mid-Atlantic. And we do a lot of work with Black and brown farmers in the region. And then our second, and these two missions really do go hand in hand, is to work with those farmers to get local produce into the hands of community organizations serving families struggling with food security. So it really is those two pieces. Everything we do is at the wholesale level, and I'll talk a little bit about wholesale pricing, but it really is creating those opportunities and supporting our local farmers and simultaneously getting food into communities where food access and food security are real issues. Esther, do you mind moving us to the next slide? Thank you. So just a little bit about how it works. The name Pop-Up Food Hub is a little bit, it's not always really obvious what that means. But essentially, our Pop-Up Food Hub team works with dozens of community organizations in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and they come to us and they place orders, wholesale orders for local produce. And then when our team pops up, our team then pops up at farmers markets throughout the region, especially on weekdays. So for example, on Tuesday, we run a farmers market at City Center. It's a Tuesday lunchtime market. As you all know, traffic in DC, foot traffic is down. So a lot of the farmers that come to that market really do struggle. So our team will place wholesale orders with those farmers ahead of the market. We will meet them on site before the market starts. We will pick up those wholesale orders from a variety of different farmers and orchards in the region. And then we aggregate and re-aggregate those and repack them into orders for our community organizations, and then load them up on our vans and deliver them same day, in most cases, to those community partners. The farmers market continues as originally planned, but at the same time, we're able to give those farmers some additional wholesale orders while still allowing them to provide direct to consumer work. So we pop up at farmers markets. We're a food hub in that respect, but we don't have the heavy infrastructure and costs of a lot of warehouses. We don't do a lot of storage. We really get the food, place the orders, get the food, and then get it back out into the community almost on the same day. Can you move us to the next slide, please? So thank you. As I mentioned, almost all of the partners that we work with are nonprofits. And there are some real key benefits to working with us. So of course, the first is that those dollars go directly back to the small and mid-sized farmers in our network. This came up, I think Lindsay even mentioned this. We pay the farmers the prices that they set. So when they come to us, they tell us what they want, we honor that and we respect that. We do not tack on a markup, we do not take a cut, we just take those wholesale prices that the farmers set and offer them directly at the same rate to our nonprofit community partners. Hold on. Thank you. We also are really committed to equity in the food system. And we know that a lot of organizations place big orders and get discounts for that. Oh my gosh, you guys, I don't know what's happening.
Take your time.
And it's of course like, then it makes it worse. Cause now I'm like, oh, stopping in the middle. Okay, let me see if I can continue. So we actually have no minimum order size. We're really committed to ensuring that an early child care center with 5 kids has the same access to local produce at wholesale prices as a school serving several hundred or several thousand children. We also offer a $5 delivery fee regardless of order size. So we really are committed to ensuring that everyone across the region has access. And as I mentioned, we do prioritize community-based organizations. Most of our work is with early childcare centers, schools, community nonprofits. We do some work with health clinics and with senior centers. And because of our pop-up model, we're able to really, oftentimes the produce that we offer is picked on a Tuesday, we get it on a Wednesday, and it is literally back out into the community same day. So we really are able to offer a short supply chain, maybe just a couple of different hands have actually touched the produce. So it is at its ripest, at its peakest, and at its most nutritious. Oh, thanks, Lindsay. So if you take us to the next slide, Esther. There are 2 primary ways that we work with our partners. I'm sharing this because for those of you that may be interested, we'd love to talk to you, love to partner with you. We tend to offer bulk produce. So that can be a box. You tell us what you want. Again, no minimum order size, but we'll pack that box and deliver it to you. Oh, you guys. Ah,
Karen,
well,
I'm happy to.
Karen, do you want to
Yeah,
grab
Rebecca.
water and we can
Yeah, I
do
was
a
gonna say I'm happy to
or
tag
something.
in if that would
Yes.
be
Rebecca,
helpful.
can you tag in on this slide,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about that, Karen. So I think Karen was just chatting about the different kind of options, and it really is these produce bags, which are similar to bags that you might see at any community share. What does CSA stand for? Community share agriculture. But we do tailor it to different models. So we look at what the budget is of the different organizations that we partner with, what's the audience that they're trying to serve, see what recommendations we can make. And then there's also bulk orders. So being able to place orders at wholesale prices. And sorry if I repeated anything that Karen was just saying. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think, you know, we're not Cisco and we're not Keeney, obviously. And we don't have, we can't always, you can't place an order at 8 o'clock at night and expect it to be delivered at 6 a.m. the next day. But what we can give you is a real relationship. And we really do work with our partners to customize, if you're working with seniors and watermelons are heavy, we'll offer alternatives. Some of our work with childcare centers, we know, young kiddos really love fruit, so let's give them what they want, and we can really tailor and customize based on your needs and the needs of the community. So just some really quick highlights. Last year, we were able to support the local farmers in our network with about $615,000 of revenue. We have about 37 farmers specifically in the pop-up food hub, many more in our overall network. But we're also really proud that within that 37, 24% of them are Black and brown farmers, which is really important to us. And while I think that data is certainly far better than the national average, I think what we're especially proud of is that 65% of the revenue last year went to those Black and brown farmers. I mentioned last year we served about 53 organizations in the region and distributed 6,000 market share bags, which are, as Rebecca mentioned, like a CSA bag. I do want to acknowledge that the vast majority of our work takes place in DC, and we would love, love, love to do more in Maryland and Montgomery County. We are currently working with 12 farms in Maryland, 3 of which are in Montgomery County. I saw someone on the chat mention something about grains. We have an amazing partnership with the Common Grain Alliance, and several of those farmers are grain farmers. But we also currently are only working with just a handful of community-based organizations in Maryland. And we would love more. We are really heavy in DC and eager to deepen our presence and do more support and work in Maryland and Montgomery County. So that is all I have presented. If you go to the next slide, and certainly we can share this out. We have our availability list just to give you a sense, some information about seasonal, what is available in season, my email address, please feel free to reach out. We also have on our website a form. You can fill it out, give us a little bit of information, and the team will follow up and reach out to learn more about any particular needs that you may have. Thank you all for bearing with me through my coughing attacks. Not really sure what happened, but I appreciate the support. And I'm totally happy to take any and all questions.
I have a question, please.
Sure.
In the event, God forbid, that we would have an emergency, a tornado, flooding, whatever, and we need to feed our most vulnerable, which is seniors, and would those farmers that you deal with, regardless of what they're, as long as they're in the state in the vicinity of a 50-mile radius, 100-mile radius, would those be the farmers that you would pull from to get fresh fruit and vegetables rather than corporate? At this point, we might need them all, but right now, for a fast, quick, and in a hurry, would those be the ones that you pull from?
I'm happy to answer that. I see, Rebecca, you raised your hand. Do you want to take that one?
Well, I was just going to say that Karen, you may have more to add on to this. I will just say that during the pandemic, for example, we do have examples of that being the case. So during the pandemic, there was a lot of food distribution that was being done, and we got several contracts from government agencies, and suddenly, in a short period of time, ramped up the distributions that we were doing because food security was, suddenly a really critical issue. So we have had examples of doing that in the past. And I think everything that Karen has been talking about is about building up a shorter supply chain, which means a more resilient local food economy. But yeah, apologies, Karen, if you have anything else.
No,
more
no,
to say.
I that is exactly what I was going to share as well. Thank you. Mary, does that answer your question?
So I gather that would be a yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. You
Yes.
see, I'm very basic because I'm a senior that advocates on the council for better food and healthier. So my main objective is there's a lot of people that are not being included in things when disaster happens and those kind of drastic things happen because of their disabilities, their language barrier, those kind of things. So I just want to know, would those be your first
Yes.
go sources?
Yeah, and I'll
Thank you.
just to state the obvious, because I know I'm amongst friends, we can't depend on the farmers in our region in times of emergency if we don't support them every other day of the year. So I think
Exactly.
that, while that's not called out as a key benefit to working with us, for sure, this is all of our work in keeping our region strong and resilient. Mike, I see you
Thank
have
you.
your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. That's super interesting. Was just curious, it sounds like you're mostly, focusing on community organizations, but without, wholesaling is not cheap, even the model you're talking about. So without marking anything up, I guess a little curious like how you're funding it, and then B, as it grows, will you need to sort of add some markup onto commercial customers or even individual customers to help, pay for that?
Such a good question. So first of all, we're a nonprofit, so we are for sure grateful for all the funders and donors that we have. We are starting to lean a little bit more heavily into work with restaurants in the region, and we are hoping that that can be a small revenue generator for us. So that's a kind of newer um, model for us. We do also the market share program that we currently run, which is our CSA program. We offer it at a retail price. We also offer it at a highly subsidized rate for families on SNAP. And the little bit of revenue that we generate for the retail model, we're able to feed back into our overall work. And we're really at kind of a critical point in looking at the business model and really trying to understand how much we can grow our revenue to help make us not 100% dependent on donors and funders for the long term. I realize we're running out of time, so I'm happy to take any other questions. And I also apologize, I haven't looked in the chat here if there's anything.
So I believe there's some comments in the chat, but like you mentioned, we are running just a little short on time. We got 3 minutes left. Do you want to remind folks that I will be sharing out both presentations in a follow-up email, so you all will have that. And just want to give a huge thank you to both of our speakers for their time, their presentation, and just continuing the wonderful work that you all are doing and helping move the needle forward. And I believe Lorianne has some closing comments and announcements.
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to say, thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you, Lindsay Smith. Thank you, Caron Gremont. And thank you, Rebecca Chavez, for, kind of helping us coordinate to have Caron speak. I just am really like always, I leave these meetings just always really, really inspired about all the amazing work that's being done and how sophisticated, it can be through COG's farm committee to like actually try to coordinate all of these amazing programs like what FRESHFARMs are doing regionally. And it's so exciting. And thank you so much for speaking with us today. So I just wanted to make a few general announcements, like food council announcements. I want to say happy 4th of July week to everybody. Hopefully we have lots of people who are having good 4th of July plans, myself included, since I'll be out of the office most of the week. But when I get back, I'm looking forward to, on July 8th, we're having a food security community call. And I wanted to mention too, on July 9th, the Equitable Land Access Working Group is going to be hosting Jennifer Hashley, who's director of the New Entry Sustainable Farming Project National Incubator Farm Training Initiative. So all the stuff that goes on at Eco City Incubator Farm, we hope to bring that kind of programming to Montgomery County. And, we're going to hopefully learn all about best practices of incubator farms and different models for incubator farm kind of programming at that working group meeting. So please do